In 2 Kings chapter 24 in the King James Version. In his days, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up, and Jehoiakim, because his servant 3 years, then he turned and rebelled against him. And the Lord sent against him bands of the Chaldees, and bands of the Syrians, and the bands of the Moabites, and bands of the children of Ammon, and sent them against Judah to destroy it, according to the word of the Lord, which he spake by his servants, the prophets. Surely, at the commandment of the Lord came this upon Judah, to remove them out of his sight, for the sins of Manasseh, according to all that he did, and also for the innocent blood that he shed, for he filled Jerusalem with innocent blood, which the Lord would not pardon. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoiakim, and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? So Jehoiakim slept with his fathers, and Jehoiachin, his son, reigned in his stead. And the king of Egypt came not again any more out of his land, for the king of Babylon had taken from the river of Egypt unto the river Euphrates all that pertained to the king of Egypt. Jehoiachin was 18 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 months. And his mother's name was Nehushta, the daughter of Elnathan of Jerusalem. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his father had done. At that time the servants of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up against Jerusalem, and the city was besieged. And Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came against the city, and his servants did besiege it. And Jehoiachin, the king of Judah, went out to the king of Babylon, he and his mother and his servants and his princes and his officers, and the king of Babylon took him in the 8th year of his reign. And he carried out thence all the treasures of the house of the Lord and the treasures of the king's house, and cut in pieces all the vessels of gold which Solomon, king of Israel, had made in the temple of the Lord, as the Lord had said. And he carried away all Jerusalem, and all the princes, and all the mighty men of valor, even 10,000 captives, and all the craftsmen and smiths. None remained, save the poorest sort of the people of the land. And he carried away Jehoiachin to Babylon, and the king's mother, and the king's wives, and his officers, and the mighty of the land. Those carried he into captivity from Jerusalem to Babylon. And all the men of might, even 7,000, and craftsmen and smiths 8,000, all that were strong and apt for war, even them the king of Babylon brought captive to Babylon. And the king of Babylon made Mattaniah his father's brother king in his stead, and changed his name to Zedekiah. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that Jehoiakim had done. For through the anger of the Lord it came to pass in Jerusalem and Judah, until he had cast them out from his presence, that Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babylon. Okay, so there was a lot here in chapter 24, a whole lot. And as we can see, they're old, let's go back to Egypt. Let's make agreements with Egypt. The Lord tried to tell them over and over again, don't rely on Egypt, don't rely on Egypt, don't rely on Egypt. And now, what has happened? Oh, I don't know. Let's see here. The king of Babylon. Verse 7, and the king of Egypt came not again any more out of his land, for the king of Babylon had taken from the river of Egypt unto the river Euphrates all that pertained to the king of Egypt. The Lord was showing Judah his prophecy. This was prophesied. You go back, Bible study, go back. This was already prophesied by the prophets that this would happen, and that this king from a particular area would come up and show up and completely wipe out everything, including Egypt. And now it's coming to pass. They were relying on Egypt for protection, and they were all already giving tithes to Egypt because Egypt had came and the people were not worshiping the Lord. So all of these things are happening. And so the prophecy, what the Lord had told them, is taking place. And so now here's in verse 11, and Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came against the city, and his servants did besiege it. And then they started dismantling the temple. In verse 13, and he carried out thence all the treasures of the house of the Lord, and the treasures of the king's house, and cut in pieces all the vessels of gold, which Solomon king of Israel had made in the temple of the Lord, as the Lord had said. And verse 20, for through the anger of the Lord it came to pass in Jerusalem and Judah until he had cast them out from his presence. Then Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babylon. Okay, so this one, there's a lot here. Sermon upon sermon. But understanding both what Job said, that the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away, which we'll get back to again, and also understanding that here is a group of people that no longer relied on the Lord, that did things in front of him, and in some cases knowingly did things, in a lot of cases, knowingly did things in front of him that were, I'm not going to follow the commandments. I'm not going to love my neighbor. I'm not going to live in the Spirit. I'm not going to. And so these things happen. Bringing past to present. So many times when it comes to, so let's take it down to a smaller, from worldly, from community to family to a relationship. When we're not communicating with each other, being understanding of one another, when we're deciding that our own thoughts and feelings are better, that causes some things, causes chaos, causes ruptures, causes tears, it causes rifts. Whether it's for economy, money, whether it's for fortune and fame and glory and pride and arrogance. When we do those things, are we being a reflection of the Lord's love, or are we seeking our own gratification? And remember, being vain, and remember, when you seek revenge, it is hollow. There's no fulfillment there, because the Lord our God says that he will take revenge. So when we decide to take those things into our own hands, right, harming the relationship with one another, our significant other, our loved one, and then we wonder why, particularly when we get to the age of the crown of glory, the gray hair, we don't quite understand why things turn out the way they are, this wasn't supposed to be this way. Think about it. Take it to the Lord. Before we go on to the last chapter in the Second Kings, what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind when we read over this? How does it make you feel? What does it make you think?